Namaskar. Good evening, viewers. It's 9 p.m. Time for the news on Sansad TV. I'm Rajeev Kumar Singh. Over the next half an hour, we will take you through all important that took place throughout the day in India and abroad. First up, the headlines. Government issues advisory on online betting advertisements, tells print and electronic media to stop publishing such advertisements. ED interrogates Rahul Gandhi in National Herald case. Congress holds demonstrations across the country. Many leaders, party workers detained. West Bengal passes bill to make Chief Minister Chancellor of the state universities. 182 members support the bill in 294-member House. BJP MLAs hold protests. Stock markets plummet. Sensex sheds 1,457 points. Nifty also closes with loss. Rupee weakens 20 paisa against the dollar. IPL becomes the second most expensive sporting league in the world behind the America's NFL. TV digital rights sold for over 44,000 crore. Now let us look at some more important news of the day. Ahead of the presidential election in July, JP Nadda and Rajnath Singh to hold consultations with political parties for the BJP. Union Minister Kiren Rijiju arrives in Mongolia with 4 holy relics of Lord Buddha for 11-day celebrations of Mongolian Buddha Purnima. COVID not over yet, warns Union Health Minister Dr. Mansukh Mandviya, emphasizes need to remain alert and adopt COVID-appropriate behavior. Fortified rice to be distributed in 291 aspirational and high-burden districts across country through PDS in 2022-23, says government. IMD predicts the heat wave conditions to continue in Punjab, Haryana, Delhi and southeast Uttar Pradesh for 2 more days. Predicts relief from 16th. Rajasthan Board of Secondary Education announces Class 10 results. Kuwait to deport expats who stage demonstration on the row over comments on the Prophet, says protests violated the laws of the country. UK's economy shrinks 0.3% in April as businesses struggle against the impact of price rise and supply chain shortages. Bangladesh to examine if Indo-Pacific Economic Framework will be beneficial for the country, says its foreign minister. Haryana tops medal tally with 52 goals in the Khelo India Youth Games. Maharashtra gets a second position, Karnataka at third. Now, news in detail. The West Bengal Education Minister introduced the West Bengal Universities Act Amendment Bill 2022 in the Assembly. He said there was nothing wrong in making the Chief Minister the Chancellor of Universities. Opposing the bill, BJP legislators said the appointment of the Chief Minister will be direct political interference in the state's higher education system. The bill was passed in the 294-member House with the support of 182 members against 40 votes. If the bill becomes law, Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee will replace Governor Jagdeep Dhankar as the Chancellor of state-run universities.
गवर्नर का पास जाएगा, गवर्नर साहब का पास 3 ऑप्शन है। एक तो साइन कर देगा, दूसरा वापस फिर एक बार भेज देना, और थर्ड है कॉन्करेंट लिस्ट में है दिल्ली भेजना। हम लोग भाजपा एमएलए मंडे गवर्नर साहब का टाइम लेकर हम लोग जाएगा गवर्नर साहब का पास। उस दिन पश्चिम बंगाल डे है, जाऊंगा और गवर्नर साहब के रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा, अपील करूंगा, कॉन्करेंट लिस्ट में है, सिग्नेचर मत कीजिए।
Bill to change our honorable governor from the post of the chancellor only, and we created and we offered in the bill and we suggested in the bill that honorable CM will be the chancellor. and the whole house has been accepted it. And now we are sending to governor, and now he will decide.
India has never wanted war with any country and till date has not occupied any other country's land, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh said on Monday. He was addressing a joint civil-military training program organized at the Lal Bahadur Shastri National Academy of Administration in Mussoorie. The Defence Minister said India believes in the spirit of Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam, but the Indian Army is always ready to defend the country's borders. Rajnath Singh added that in future, India need not depend on other countries for the purchase of defence equipment.
ट्रेनिंग लेने के लिए यहाँ इस एकेडमी में आते हैं कि मानिए कि आप किसी एकेडमी किसी इंस्टीट्यूट में नहीं बैठे हैं बल्कि किसी आप तीर्थ स्थान पर यहाँ पर बैठे हैं क्योंकि जिस प्रकार की भविष्य में आपको जिम्मेदारी का निर्वाह करना है और सेवा का काम है जनता की सेवा का काम है देश की सेवा का काम है सेवा के काम के लिए समर्पण भी होना चाहिए
Betting and gambling are illegal in most parts of the country and pose significant financial and socio-economic risk for consumers, the I&B ministry said on Monday. Issuing an advisory to the print, electronic and digital media, the ministry asked them to stop carrying advertisements of online betting platforms. The advisory comes in light of instances of a number of advertisements of online betting websites, platforms appearing in print, electronic, social and online media. The ministry added that such advertisements on online betting have the effect of promoting this largely prohibited activity. Retail inflation declined to 7.04% in May due to cheaper food items, but it remained above the RBI's satisfactory level for the fifth month in a row. According to the data released by the National Statistical Office, the CPI-based inflation stood at 7.79% in April. Retail inflation was 6.3% in May last year. Food inflation declined to 7.97% in May 2022 from 8.3% in the previous month. Equity benchmarks had another rough day on Monday, with the Sensex plummeting 1,457 points and the Nifty tumbling to 15,774 level, mirroring an extremely weak trend in global markets along with unrelenting foreign fund outflows. Index majors ICICI Bank, Infosys and Reliance Industries bore the brunt of heavy selling. The 30-share BSE Sensex tumbled 2.68% to settle at 52,846.70. During the day, it plummeted 3.27%. The Nifty tanked 2.64% to close at 15,774.4. Elsewhere in Asia, markets in Seoul, Tokyo, Hong Kong and Shanghai also settled with deep cuts. Markets in Europe were also facing heavy selling pressure in mid-session deals. Stock exchanges in the US ended sharply lower on Friday. International oil benchmark Brent crude fell 0.98% to US dollar 120.75 per barrel. The Enforcement Directorate questioned former Congress President Rahul Gandhi on the allegations relating to money laundering in the National Herald case. The investigating agency has summoned Congress President Sonia Gandhi on June 23rd in the same case. The questioning of the Gandhi family is part of the ED probe to understand the stake pattern, financial transactions and the role of promoters of Young Indian and Associated Journals Limited. Meanwhile, Congress leaders and workers staged a protest outside ED offices against the questioning. The party has accused the centre of misusing the investigative agencies. And in other news from across the nation, Vice President of India M. Venkaiah Naidu on Monday visited the Prime Minister's museum in Delhi. He said the museum gives a comprehensive experience of the country's successful democratic journey after independence and its socio-economic transformation. The Vice President asserted that it instills pride for the nation in every citizen. Prime Minister Modi urged people to be a part of the 8th International Yoga Day on June 21st. He said yoga has gained tremendous popularity globally. The Prime Minister tweeted that people from different walks of life, including politicians, sportspersons, entrepreneurs and actors, regularly practice yoga and share their thoughts on how it has helped them. Union Health Minister Dr. Mansukh Mandviya interacted with health ministers of the states on Monday. He called on states to focus on increasing COVID-19 vaccination coverage for school-going children, preventive doses for the elderly and strengthening genome sequencing of the virus. The BJP has won all 26 seats of the Karbi Anglong Autonomous Council in Assam. The party has retained its hold on the council, having won the last election in 2017 as well. Voting for the Karbi Anglong Autonomous Council elections was held on Wednesday. The Rouse Avenue Court in Delhi on Monday sent AAP leader and Delhi Minister Satyendra Jain to 14-day judicial custody in an alleged money laundering case. Security forces have killed over 100 terrorists in counterinsurgency operation in Kashmir since the beginning of the year. Of these, nearly 63 had links with the terrorist organization Lashkar-e-Taiba. 29 foreign terrorists have been killed since the beginning of the year. The National Company Law Appellate Tribunal on Monday rejected Amazon's plea challenging the decision of a fair trade regulator, CCI, to suspend the approval for the e-commerce majors deal with future coupons. The NCLAT said the appellate Amazon has not made a full, whole, forthright and frank disclosures of relevant materials. 8,084 new cases of COVID-19 were reported in the last 24 hours, taking the daily rate of infections in the country to over 3% for the first time in 4 months. The number of patients under treatment has increased to 47,995, which is 0.11% of the total cases. The daily infection rate is 3.24%, while the weekly infection rate is 2.21%. The national recovery rate of patients is 98.68%. Over 195 crore doses of anti-COVID vaccines have been given so far under the nationwide vaccination campaign. Time for a short break here. On the other side, World Trade Organization opens its highest level meeting in 4.5 years. India says it should send a strong message to make rich and developed countries help less developed nations. Welcome back. Time now for all the main developments from Russia-Ukraine war front. Ukraine's army says Russian troops have pushed their forces out of the Severodonetsk center. A spokesman for the Ukraine's military said Moscow's forces were continuing their assault on the city with artillery support. Severodonetsk in Ukraine's eastern Luhansk region has emerged as the central front in Russia's campaign to capture the wider Donbas region. Finnish President Sauli Niinisto has said both Ukraine and Russia are now using heavier weapons, including thermobaric bombs in Russia's case. NATO countries have also accused Russia of using thermobaric bombs, which are also known as vacuum bombs and are much more devastating than the conventional explosives. An aide to Ukraine's president has pleaded with Kiev's allies to provide it with more arms as Moscow's offensive in the Donbas continues. He appealed in particular for howitzer tanks and multiple launch rocket systems. He added that decision on further weapons supplies is expected to be made on Wednesday when NATO defense ministers meet at the Transatlantic Military Alliance's headquarters in Brussels. Russia's defense ministry says its forces have destroyed a large number of weapons and military equipment in the Donbas region, including some sent by United States and European nations. The ministry said its military had used high-precision air-based missile to hit equipment delivered to Ukrainian forces. Latest research shows Russia has earned $98 billion from fossil fuel exports in the first 100 days of the war in Ukraine. The European Union is the top importer. Meanwhile, Russia, gas producer Gazprom, said the supply of gas to Europe through Ukraine via the Sudzha entry point remained at 41.9 million cubic meters on Monday. Nearly 288 children have been killed since Russia launched its invasion on February 24th. Ukrainian prosecutors says 527 children have been wounded. The prosecutors also said that 218 victims were in Donetsk region, 166 in Kharkiv region and 116 around Kiev. Farmers in Ukraine's Odessa region have started the 2022 grain harvest, taking advantage of favorable weather. Ukraine has already completed its sowing season, but the Agriculture Ministry has provided no crop outlook for the current year. Time now for some other global updates. Israeli settlers in the occupied West Bank may soon experience the military rule that Palestinians have been living under for 55 years. All about it in this report.
If Israel's parliament does not act, a special legal status accorded to the settlers will expire at the end of the month with wide-ranging consequences. It will mean that lawyers who live in the settlements will no longer be allowed to practice law. Settlers will be subject to military courts, usually reserved for Palestinians, and lose access to some public services. For over half a century, Israel has repeatedly renewed regulations that today extend a legal umbrella to nearly 5 lakh settlers, but not to over 2.5 million Palestinians in the West Bank. The bill failed to pass last Monday. It will be brought for another vote in the Knesset next week in a last-ditch effort to save the governing coalition and the legal arrangement. The law underpins separate legal systems for Jews and Palestinians in the West Bank, a situation that 3 major human rights groups say amounts to apartheid. Israel rejects that allegation as an attack on its legitimacy. An overwhelming majority in the Knesset support maintaining the separate systems. The main reason the bill did not pass last week was that the nationalist opposition, which strongly supports it, paradoxically refused to vote in favor in an attempt to bring down Israel's broad-based but fragile coalition government. Israel captured the West Bank in the 1967 Mideast War and has built more than 130 settlements there, many of which resemble small towns with apartment blocks, shopping malls and industrial zones. Bureau Report, Sansad TV.
Now some more important news from the world over. Sri Lankan Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe says his country may be compelled to buy more oil from Russia as the island nation hunts desperately for fuel. Wickremesinghe said while he would definitely look to other sources, he would be open to buying more crude from Moscow. He said that Sri Lanka is open to accept more financial help from China despite his country's mounting debt. 10 Democrats and 10 Republicans reached a bipartisan deal to address the rising gun violence in America. The agreement incentivizes states to implement what are being called the red flag laws. It allows police to temporarily seize the gun of a gunman if he or she makes a threat. It also permits the National Mental Health Service to review juvenile and mental health records during background checks for gun purchase by people under 21. The major emphasis is on the funding of the school safety measures. The United Nations Human Rights Chief Michelle Bachelet said that the number of severely food insecure people is expected to grow from 276 million at the start of 2022 to 323 million. She said that the ripple effect of the war in Ukraine are plunging millions into food insecurity and poverty. Vishal was addressing the latest session of the UN-backed Human Rights Council. Queen Elizabeth II became the world's second longest reigning monarch in history after Louis XIV of France, who reigned for 72 years and 110 days. Queen Elizabeth's reign today is at 70 years, 127 days. She began her reign on 6th of February 1952. On Sunday, she took over the title of second longest reigning monarch from Thailand's King Bhumibol, who reigned for 70 years and 126 days. Wildfire forced large-scale evacuations in North Arizona on Sunday. A pipeline fire reportedly burnt about 4,000 to 5,000 acres by late afternoon, pushing people for about 15 miles. Although the cause of wildfire was not known, a 57-year-old man was arrested and charged with natural resource violations. Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal has said that WTO needs to send out a strong message that rich and developed countries should help developing and less developed countries. Addressing the 12th WTO Ministerial Conference in Geneva, Goyal said the WTO should not pressurize developing countries on non-trade issues. Issues such as climate change and gender equality are legally covered by other intergovernmental organizations.
भारत का जो पक्ष है, चाहे वो कृषि क्षेत्र हो, चाहे मछुआरों का क्षेत्र हो, चाहे वो ई-कॉमर्स का मॉरेटोरियम हो या WTO का इस भीषण महामारी के सामने जो चुनौती रही है विश्व की, उसके ऊपर जो कदम उठाने की आवश्यकता है, वो विषय हो। इन सभी विषयों के ऊपर भारत ने अपनी बातें रखी हैं।
The World Trade Organization opened its highest level meeting in 4.5 years on Sunday. Among the many issues it has on its agenda are pandemic preparedness, food insecurity against the backdrop of Russia's war in Ukraine, and overfishing of the world's seas.
The WTO's Director General hopes the upcoming meeting involving over 120 ministers from 164 member countries will make progress in reducing inequality and ensuring fair and free trade.
Today, with history looming over us, with that multilateral system seemingly fragile, this is the time to invest in it, not to retreat from it. This is the time to summon the much-needed political will to show that the WTO can be part of the solution to the multiple crises of the global commons that we face. Excellencies, the challenges we currently confront are also an opportunity.
The WTO chief insisted that trade has lifted 1 billion people out of poverty, but poorer countries and poor people in richer ones are often left behind. She pointed to the food emergency caused by Russia's invasion of Ukraine, where blockaded ports have impeded exports of between 25 million tons of grain from a key European breadbasket. Ministers will also consider whether to commit to lifting or easing export restrictions on food to alleviate pressures on countries facing a shortage of wheat, fertilizer and other products because of the war. They also will decide whether to support the UN's World Food Programme get supplies to feed needy countries around the world. The World Trade Organization was created in 1995 as a successor to the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade. It hasn't produced a major trade deal in years. The last one, reached nearly a decade ago, was an agreement that cut up red tape on goods clearing borders and was billed as a boost to lower-income countries. Bureau Report, Sansad TV.
Time now for all the sporting action. Starting with IPL, the media rights auction for the world's richest cricket league, which has media giants like Disney and Sony Corp vying for broadcast rights, could fetch BCCI upwards of $6 billion. The stakes are high, and the online auction for television and digital broadcast rights from 2023 to 2027 of the Indian Premier League is at stake. In badminton, two-time Olympic medalist PV Sindhu and rising star Lakshya Sen will seek consistency as they lead the Indian charge at the Indonesia Open Super 1000 badminton tournament beginning in Jakarta on Tuesday. Sindhu opens against China's He Bingjiao. In the men's singles, 8th seed Sen and HS Pranoy will cross sword in all Indian contests, while Kidambi Srikanth will meet Chinese Taipei's Wang Zhu Wei in his opener. On to weightlifting, Guru Naidu Sanapati has become India's first weightlifter to win a gold at the IWF Youth World Championships in Leon, Mexico. The 16-year-old claimed the yellow medal with a total effort of 230 kgs. In athletics, a former Indian long-distance runner Hari Chand passed away today morning, aged 69. He was a two-time Olympian and also won 2 gold medals at the 1978 Bangkok Asian Games. He had finished first in the 5,000 meters and 10,000 meter races in Bangkok. In football, Spain won a second successive UEFA Nations League match with a 2-0 win over the Czech Republic, while rivals Portugal conceded a goal after just 57 seconds to lose to Switzerland. Spain got the better of Czech Republic, against whom they had drawn 2-2 in Prague last week. In Geneva, Haris Seferovic scored in the first minute against the Portugal side, playing without Cristiano Ronaldo. Before we wrap, let's take a look at the headlines once again. Government issues advisory on online betting advertisements, tells print and electronic media to stop publishing such advertisements. ED interrogates Rahul Gandhi in National Herald case. Congress holds demonstrations across the country. Many leaders, party workers detained. West Bengal passes bill to make Chief Minister Chancellor of State Universities. 182 members support the bill in 294 members' House. BJP MLAs hold protests. Stock markets plummet. Sensex sheds 1,457 points. Nifty also closes with loss. Rupee weakens 20 paisa against a dollar. IPL becomes the second most expensive sporting league in the world behind America's NFL. TV digital rights sold for over 44,000 crore rupees. That's all we have in this bulletin. To keep yourself updated, stay tuned to Sansad TV. Till next time, goodbye, namaskar.